Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com, DebatePhysics.com also, and such video presentation. Chair is not working. Ugh, it's always something. This is such a minor thing. My chair will work. Come on. Wheels. Anyway, yeah, all of this physics stuff. How do things work and, really work? And all of this, for me, from my perspective, this disagreement, yes, they all agree. Okay, so what? What does that mean? Because they don't think through it and they don't bother recognizing their huge contradictions. So we're basically arguing this idea of whether momentum is being conserved is a concept. And yes, it seems logical that if you're going to sit there and believe in something, you have to believe either energy is this mv stuff or it's the 1/2 mv squared, the thing with the silly dress, the extra little bits that just make a mess out of it, frankly. It's a perfectly useful and functional concept, momentum. And, they made a mistake hundreds of years ago and accepted a wrong axiom or premise for reality, and they just go with it as long as they evade having to deal with real world circumstances where it shows itself to be contradictory and ludicrous. So anyway, this, I don't know, what the fuck do you call this moron? So he double downs on this lying again thing. DraftScience lies again, as if there's some lie in these videos. But he won't quote the lie. So it's just, it's not a very useful accusation, but you can't do much with it because he's not quoting whatever the lie is. So he spends another 10 minutes on this stupid little sub-subject of how exactly a lever is functional and where you can make it dysfunctional. Now, I did receive a comment that was really stupid, so maybe I'll do that first. On the website. Sorry, Donovan guy, but it's your your approach to analyzing it is stupid on its face. I mean, it's just so you really don't know what you're talking about. It's plain and simple. Anyway, so let's do that first. So they think that, because they come up with these stupid ideas about what, MGH, they think the distance something is somehow has something to do with it. And then they literally actually think, gravity is a per foot force, even though I keep pointing out it's 9.8 meters per second. Okay, you get it every increment of time is what you get it in. You get it in time intervals. It's just undeniable. It means 9.8 meters per 1 second. All right. Anyway, so the simple way to explain to him the fallacy of his nonsensical way of analyzing how much something weighs. So let's say I am dangling something on a lever, and I just put the lever half over a cliff, right? Okay, so I have a little support for the fulcrum. So I have half the lever over a cliff and half the lever much closer to the surface. So, they're doing a calculation like, oh, this energy, the potential energy of this object is mgh. No, it isn't. Okay, it's in gravity. Okay, all that matters is how far is it from the center of the earth. Okay, that's the measurement, and the amount of difference between these two objects is in the millionths of tiny incremental bits. I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference anyway. But clearly, this was a giant piece of lead. Okay, then this would be under more gravity, but it wouldn't be gone by this mgh number. Would be irrelevant because you'd be changing how much 9.8 is. 9.8 wouldn't be 9. It's not 9.8 anymore. But the simple truth is, it's the object can't tell that. Oh, look, I can fall further here. Therefore, I have more potential energy. You're thinking about it all wrong. That's after it falls. That potential only means something if it actually is allowed to free fall. If it isn't allowed to free fall, that is, I hit something, I let it rub against something somewhere, or I hit a bird or something, then all of a sudden it didn't have that potential. And so clearly that has nothing to do. Its potential just has to do with its distance from the center of the Earth, and you can just do it in gradients. And the average is pretty solid. You have to pile up quite a bit of Earth before you can sit there and say there's more or less gravity on a surface somewhere. And it really, again, just has to do with how far you are from the center of the Earth and how dense the material is between you and that center. But again, the variations are so tiny, that they're not worth conversation. And they're certainly not worth conversation in a simple example. The lever works just fine. I hang it over a cliff, it works just fine. It doesn't care about this differential in the matter, okay, between it and the center of the Earth. Isn't going to make enough of a difference to screw up the lever in some dramatic way and it now doesn't balance or something. All right, that's just not going to happen. So it doesn't provide any explanation. This is not the potential energy, okay? The potential energy is in the fact that you actually have to be pushed by the gravity. You don't automatically have the energy here based on how far you can fall. You don't have it. It doesn't exist. You haven't acquired it yet. You have to free fall in the gravity before you can have it. All right, so the only thing that they have in common or equal is that they're both in a field that's 9.8 meters per second. Okay, that's it, per 1 second. That's all. That's what they have. And so you can't say that they have different amounts of pressure or that they're being affected by a different amount. They really aren't. So it's just, it's a non-starter, as they say, as a potential explanation for anything. Objects can't see the ground. They don't know how far away the ground is. Okay. And it won't have anything to do with their reality because it's way too small a difference. I mean, I could have a lever, and you're saying I could put a cat under one end of the lever, and somehow now the lever bends because the cat's gravitational influence affects the lever in some dramatic way. No. All right. So back to the Gosling moron. So we'll just keep doing this because this is the more interesting subject and they keep evading it, right? So for 2 years I say, please draw a lever, please draw a spaceship. Okay, is that hard to do? See, look how easy it is. All right, and explain how your kinetic energy works. So let's say I have 2 springs in my spaceship and I'm going to release 2 objects off these springs. I compress the springs, and on this side I'm going to let, I'm going to have a little opening there, and the object's going to fly out that side. I'm going to have a little opening here, and this object's going to fly out that side. Okay. And the simple thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a 5 mass going 10 here. Okay. Could be a bullet, frankly. Okay. It could be a 1 mass going 1,000. Okay. And this other side, I'm going to do the 10 going 5. Okay. Or it could be, it's 1,000, big heavy thing, and going 1. All right. Now, by their kinetic energy theory, this has, in this case, 1,000 times more energies going out this way than this way. And let's understand the energies in joules, and joules equal watts. Okay, so I'm sending 1,000 more watts out this side than I am that side in this case, and in the other case, yes, it's twice as much. And the simple argument is if the spaceship has a trajectory this way, it has momentum, motion. Is the motion affected by this kinetic energy differential? Based on Newton's third law, you'd argue it has to be. Or there is no third law, right? There's no relevant third law. If the only thing the third law affects is momentum, and somehow it doesn't affect kinetic energy, why are you even talking about it, right? Because momentum doesn't mean anything to these people. I mean, it can't mean anything because it's not what energy is. So I'm just saying, answer the question. Could you at least answer the question? Do you think the spaceship turns based on the kinetic energy differential that I release from the ship? And if you concede it doesn't turn, I'm just arguing that isn't that the most basic and elemental proof that your theory is wrong? If you can't move the spaceship's direction, doesn't it prove that the energy is meaningless? That it doesn't have any function? I mean, how can you say kinetic energy means something if it can't just turn the spaceship? If it can't turn an electron even? You know, if it can't turn an object's motion, if it can't change the object's motion, how can you call it real energy? It doesn't make any sense. Alright, so we'll just leave it with the one argument. I can make the lever argument, I can make the gear argument, I can make the hydraulic argument. These are all arguments they keep evading and not providing their explanation for how it's possible to do this kinetic energy thing where every time I use a force, the same force, and I move a light object versus moving a heavy object, and I conserve the momentum, I end up creating bizarre differentials in the amount of kinetic energy in the universe. And that can't be right. They should be able to understand how that can't be right. But whatever. It's just this endless cycle of bullshit. So again, he's fiddling with his little experiment that doesn't answer the question. So instead of doing the simple experiment, just make a lever. Best if it's this way, horizontal on the ground, and just put the 5 mass over here, 2 units of distance, crash the 10 mass in, and see if the 5 mass moves twice the velocity. That's the experiment we need. Don't have it. 350 years of their physics, and they haven't done it yet. Okay, that's the context. I just can't imagine what the fuck he's going on about. I just, I can't. I mean,
I'm saying this off the...
Okay, he's saying this off the... It's probably almost the right value. Let me just put it down a little, maybe. Let's see how that looks on the meter. Let's see. It's hard to get his volume right.
The top of my head. Unplanned, unscripted, so forgive me if I make a mistake.
Oh, yeah, well, you won't cut anybody else this latitude, but whatever, fine. Why don't you make a video explaining how it's okay that the kinetic energies, like we can make it from nothing. The same spring compression can create different kinetic energies. So go ahead and, explain how that makes sense to you.
First thing is, I'd like to do a sit-down video for an hour, playing your video.
Yeah, I would like that to happen. That would be the best thing, possible. And like I said, you only have to play this little clip. You don't have to play much. Just this portion where I talked about the spaceship, and just explain how it works. Yeah, not too tough.
Going through all the mistakes you make and correcting them. Be quite good. I'd probably enjoy doing it, actually, but
so more talk, more bullshit about how it's not possible. So he's somehow limited in his technology, so he can't play a video on a TV or any other device and then use his phone to play the clip. And he's basically saying, I can't quote from your video, so even though there's a transcript, you can't quote from it. He won't bother doing that either.
You got the facilities.
Okay, well, you want somebody to help you with that? I mean, they could explain to you how you could have the facilities. I mean, it's hard to believe you don't have a single other device that can play a YouTube video, that you can't record it on some other device, that you can't play it on some other device. No. You can say that, okay? You don't have an old phone that you could load the video on and then play the video on the old phone. You don't have anything like that?
Or B, you got the time to do it. All I can do is pick up on the odd thing I can remember and try and address that.
Okay, well, that's really not good enough, and after 350 years, it just seems like science should be able to do a little better than this. So, yeah, maybe you're not the best person to be representing or defending the science because you're just not equipped, to be able to even record the argument made and then be able to counter it. So, I mean, you don't think I really should have the expectation that somebody should be able to counter my argument in the similar form I present it. I think this is the perfectly rational way to present an argument. You draw the picture, you explain the forces involved, and then you tell somebody, well, what did I say that's wrong? Explain to me what I said that's wrong. You do understand how it's not an egregious offense against reason and logic that I would have the expectation that one of you fucking imbeciles could make a fucking appropriate, relevant video response.
One of the things that you said in today's video stuck in my mind about Newton's F times ma, which you want to discount the a.
I want to tell you it's not Newton's formula, so you want to keep putting it in Newton's mouth. I think that's completely fucking evil. All right? I mean, it's terrible that people do this to other people. They quote mine them, do different things. I mean, they made Einstein into a religious kook. They do lots of things. And that's just bullshit. And you don't think that's bullshit? So, I mean, saying that Newton conceived of his understanding of the universe, okay, based on F equals ma, where acceleration is per second, whatever the fuck that means, to think that he made these stupid mistakes, he didn't. All right, and he overtly and clearly stated, you want to make something move twice as fast, you apply twice the force. He couldn't be any clearer about it. So, fuck, why are you pretending that is his formula when it's not? That's not his formulation. That they came up with in the 1800s.
And you misrepresent what he said.
Okay, I don't misrepresent what he said. That's a fucking lie. So whatever. So point out where I misrepresented. So let's see your correction. Point out where he said, no, it takes 4 times the force to go twice as fast. Point that out.
And you get it wrong. Quite deliberately, I think. I don't think it's fair to say you're just stupid, because...
Again, okay, so same back at you. It's not fair to say you're just making honest mistakes. You're a fucking evil, malicious hater of the truth. So I'm right in calling you that. You don't give a fuck about the truth. You just give a fuck about attacking Gary. All right? Because you're a petty, small-minded, little weaselly, cruddy piece of shit as a human being. So there, we finished with our psychobabble bullshit. Ugh. Clearly, you're not well motivated.
I would never poke fun at people that are cognitively challenged, because it's not their fault.
Oh, whatever that is again. so you don't laugh at Monty Python. Oh, okay.
But I think you're a liar. I think that...
All right, so let's just say he thinks that. And again, just like all his other theories, he's completely unwilling to prove it. So what's the lie this time? So the lie this time is Newton didn't say, you want to go twice as fast, apply twice the force. If you want to go 3 times as fast, apply 3 times the force. He didn't say that, even though he did say that.
That's what the real thing about you is, Gary. You're a liar. And you...
Okay, so he says it again. The lie is what? What is the big lie? Where is the big lie? Could you please quote the big lie? Oh, what a fucking weasel. I mean, this is just so... Oh... it's like back on the forums or something, all this evasion of the subject, all of this horse shit about, the messenger. Oh, let's just kill the messenger. Let's not bother with dealing with the message at all. I mean, what use is this crap? You call somebody a liar and you won't quote the fucking lie. What the fuck is that? It's just so insanely stupid. And, oh, yes, I guess somebody will fall for it, okay, like a brozo. But what rational person sits there and says, oh, yeah, what a great argument he made. He sure did debunk that lie that guy did. No, he didn't.
Misrepresent everything. In the videos I've done, you forget what I've done the day before.
I don't forget it. I just completely discount it because it's always rubbish, okay? You don't deal with any of the arguments made. Again, you won't tie the springs together. You don't tie them to the base. The springs are moving. That's not a good sign. There's something, the energy's obviously not getting into the object. You just couldn't care less.
And then you misrepresent it. It's completely hopeless trying to deal with you. You don't want to be taught. You don't
Okay,
want to be
so
educated.
he won't do the experiment. He won't, make a lever, put a certain energy in one side and see what comes out the other side. He won't do the experiment, and he certainly won't explain or diagram how the lever destroys momentum. He won't explain where the momentum that doesn't go into the objects, where it goes. All right, he's really arguing with conventional physics. I mean, again, I'll quote Professor Lewin: nature can something, kinetic energy, but nature can't finagle momentum. He thinks nature finagles it all the time, but he won't show us it in any clear way besides his shitty experiments that clearly are flawed.
You're uneducatable. That's a word.
So this is what the video is. So it's 10 minutes of a complete waste of time. Okay. And you're made out of shit. Your mother was a whore. There. She had to be, on drugs. Because how could you be such an asshole?
Uneducatable. Uneducable. You're a prat. Good old English word, prat.
Yeah, fun.
Don't know where it originates, but it suits you quite well. It's not really for you, this, as I've said.
That's why want me to pick on all of England because it has little. So you can't even say twat correctly. Twat.
Said before, you will never admit that you're wrong. You cannot. You're a whole raison d'etre now.
What? Again, more bullshit. So I should admit I'm wrong because you haven't proven anything. So I'm wrong not to think I'm not a liar because you so proved I lied. No, that's not going to happen either. I mean, just amazing bullshit.
Your whole life raison d'etre. Your vicious, nihilistic attitude to life.
Okay, big fat lie. So again, he just can't get the truth correct, right? So nihilists, by kind of definition, can't be obsessed with the notion of wasted suffering. That can't be a nihilist agenda. They don't believe there's any real value in the universe or anything is really meaningful. So how the fuck could that definition be anywhere near fair or correct? Right? It just can't be. By definition, it can't be. You're just such... I mean, so what is that? I mean, it's just... You're such a duplicitous, thieving cheater of the truth. You're a thief. Stealing the integrity of the truth. Stealing from it. Sucking your parasite. Sucking its blood. Feeding off it like some kind of sick little... fact Dracula.
And to the human race depends on you debunking science. Yeah, and you won't do it. You'll never.
I know that's not the truth either, but he's saying I won't do it. I've already done it, frankly. And I've proven that you're all cowards. Okay, because you can't beat a single one of my challenges. You can't take a single one of the thought experiments, explain how I am wrong about the outcome of any one of those experiments. You can't demonstrate it and you can't logically explain it. That's the fact. And I've attempted to pay people to explain it and they won't do it. They'll just run the fuck away. From Baldy Cats right in the beginning, it's all just coward. Because when they really have to face the physics I'm arguing, they have no counter argument because their physics isn't prepared to make the argument because it just has lived on its little Jesus fable for so long it just doesn't know any other truth.
But do it. You'll take this nonsense to your grave. I feel sorry for you, actually. It's sad.
Okay, and I don't feel sorry for you because this is all malicious. You're thinking about what you're saying. You're saying you're doing this video on purpose, this pile of ad hominem crap. Okay, I don't make videos like that. I don't sit there and just create an excuse to make some jerk video where I'm not going to prove anything I'm going to say. I'm not going to make any reasonable arguments. I'm just going to make a litany of fucking vague accusations. Fuck you for that, okay? You should get what you goddamn deserve, you lying sack of petty shit. Your motivation sucks. You're just a malicious troll. That's all your agenda is about, is your petty, small little penis problem. You fucking piece of shit.
To see it. And as it wasn't for a handful of fellow, I don't know, depressed
dickless morons that's on your side. Oh, amazing.
sifs that follow you.
Whatever. And again, where have I ever relied on my gang, my mob, my minions? Where is there any evidence of that at all? People who have given me money, I've called them assholes. I mean, that's how bizarre this is, okay? I mean, I just have no interest, okay? I'm interested in the fucking argument, and if somebody wishes to contribute by making actually good arguments, that would be great. But frankly, most of the minions make shitty arguments. So when have I relied on any of that shit? Nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. I don't come to their defense. I don't do anything. So fuck you. This is about the fucking physics subject. You can't stay on the subject, that's clear, because you're afraid of the fucking real subject. In all of these stupid experiments, why hasn't the simplest experiment been done? Just put the energy into one side of the lever and see what pops out the other side. Fuck you.
There's not a single person that agrees with you. Oh, I'd like to hear them. Please comment on my channel if you think Gary can be right. I don't think you do. I think you're just watching because you're depressed.
Again, silly. It's a silly statement. I mean, obviously people have gotten this a long time ago, some of them. Superior mind, other people. So, I mean, no point. But what does that mean? Does that really mean something to you people? The fact that there's billions of people who believe in God means that God is a credible theory that has some hope of being the truth? No. It's just evidence of this gang warfare bullshit, that you're just members of clubs. You don't think about what you believe. You just believe it because the guy who told you so has such a friendly face. I mean, Barney the dinosaur. Who couldn't believe to Barney the dinosaur? I mean, I don't know where you got your knowledge, Teletubby episodes. I don't know. But it's clearly stupid. You're clearly incapable of understanding logic and non-contradiction.
But Newton, as the bloke who says, hello boys and girls, what did he say? He read it out in Latin and he said, force is equal to the change in motion.
Yeah, change in momentum. That's what he said.
Something similar to that. And you say, there you go, you see. One velocity is one force. Two velocities is two forces. It's all linear. That's not what he's bloody well saying.
Okay, it's what Newton bloody well said. Okay, so who cares what somebody else interprets it to say? But regardless, Julius Sumner didn't say anything different. He didn't say anything different. So again, you see, because you can't accurately quote and you're automatically paraphrasing, you think he said something different. You think somewhere in that video he said something about 4 times the force to go twice as fast. No, he didn't say it, shithead.
You swine. The change in...
So I'm a slime because I actually am correct. Oh, look, Despar showed it in his video. What are you saying, Despar's a liar? He went and got the exact quote, the best English translation he could find anyway. But it's clearly in the subtext of Newton's second law. Newton clearly says, you want to go twice as fast, you apply twice the force.
Motion. the change in motion. If you're going at 10 mile an hour, the change in motion to 20 mile an hour is the acceleration. He did not say the force required to maintain a velocity.
He didn't. We're not talking about maintaining. We're talking about acquiring or maintaining. It doesn't matter. You're claiming it takes 4 times the energy in both cases. I'm claiming in both cases, no, it only takes twice the force. And it's demonstrated by being twice the time in the fucking gravity. So again, even though I keep pointing out, I mean, I could write that part again. Could you fuck that up again? I mean, do you have the courage to actually point out how I'm wrong when I say it's 9.8 meters per 1 second? That's what Newton's saying. That's the formula. That's the correct way to state it. The absolutely correct way to state it is it's 9.8 meters per second per 1 second.
Is proportional to the force required to maintain a different velocity. He's not talking about maintaining a velocity. He's talking about the change.
And again, who cares? How does that change anything? The velocity will be a byproduct of the change. So the velocity is directly tied to the acceleration. The velocity can't possibly do anything other than be obedient to the acceleration. So there's absolutely no difference. And when you're defining an acceleration, you're defining it in terms of a change in the velocity. The acceleration is made out of velocity. Shit. So again, what does this, again, just it's an amazing perversion of the subject. So just argue with what Newton said. So just go ahead, read where Newton clearly says you want to go twice as fast, apply twice the force, and then explain how Newton was wrong.
From one velocity to another. That is called the acceleration. Force is equal to the mass times acceleration, not to maintaining a velocity.
Okay, so again, the mass times the acceleration doesn't mean anything in this context because it's not the same context. Obviously, Newton didn't use that terminology. Newton said F equals the change in your momentum over the period of time that's relevant. So if the time is 2 seconds, then you put a 2, okay, and you have a rate. That's the rate of the force, because in gravity it's a constant force. But if you're not talking about a constant force, you're talking about an impulse, well then it's just going to be a net. And all you do is just say, well, what's the unit of time is going to be, frankly, irrelevant, because it's going to be 1. It's 1 unit of net time. There's a net amount of time you had a force applied, and so that's it. So it's the fraction goes away, and all you have is the force equals the change in your momentum. So I've already done this. So I've said this, numerous times, explain that simple truth, and here you are lying, okay, and saying I'm somehow misrepresenting Newton. No, you're misrepresenting Newton.
Maintaining a velocity doesn't necessarily require much energy. It's just the loss of friction.
Yes, exactly. That's right. It doesn't acquire maintenance. That's exactly right. That's why something gains velocity when it's free falling, is because as long as air resistance is moot, because it's minimal, the fact is the velocity is maintained and you're adding more force to the previously acquired velocity. So you're not adding any more energy to a system, but the 2 units of force. The 2 units where you accelerate. The rest of it is free. Once you've accelerated, then you've gained that energy, and that's exactly why you don't have to do 4 times the work to go 4 times the distance in gravity.
But changing a velocity, or accelerating, requires much more force. Because of the inertia, or as you like to call it,
the mass. Yeah, so the mass is somehow in the way? No, it isn't. Okay, heavy things require more matter to push them. The force, there has to be more force applied. It's butter on bread. You have more bread, the butter's not going to go as far. I mean, I've used these analogies, made these points. You know, you're just evading all of them, and with this lame excuse, you can't in any way correctly and accurately represent what I'm saying. Instead, you have to pervert it and change it, okay? Because you can't argue with the actual argument, and that's the fact.
The inability of the multitude of particles and atoms to receive the energy and spread amongst it. Who the F and L wants to say that every time? Just call it inertia. That's how you want to...
No. I'm just saying no, because it's not accurate. There's no counter force, there's no element, there's no nothing. There's just the facts, okay, that nickels aren't quarters and dollars aren't $10,000 bills. They're different. And the distinction should be understood exactly why. And it's just because it's more massive. There's more mass to push. It requires more energy to push it at the same speed. Duh. That's not too hard a concept to understand. That there is no resistance to its movement. It's just that you need a lot more energy to move it if there's a lot more mass.
Define it. Use the word inertia. You want to define it as the inability to spread energy amongst all the atomic particles. You can't fucking write that down every 5 minutes, can you? So just use one word.
No, I'm not going to use a word that's inaccurate. There is no counter force. There is no thing called an inertia that is stopping the energy. There is no resistance to the fucking energy being applied to the object beyond the resistance that you have to, it's all quantized and there's a minimum. And once you create a mass differential between two objects that's significant enough, you can't break that minimum. That is, you'll never be able to move the object because you can't dissect you can't go smaller than a penny. You're stuck with pennies. Pennies are the smallest you can go. If it's required that you have half pennies on all the pieces of mass, well then you obviously can't move the matter because you can't subdivide the pennies. So that's the limitation. But otherwise, it always works. I mean, if you hit an object, I did this over and over and over again. I mean, I have a brick wall. I bounce a ball against the brick wall. I get, let's say I have a perfect rubber ball, I get 100% of the energy back. All right, because this is immovable. Because I can't spread it. I can't convert it into something smaller than the pennies. So there's no way to spread it on this gigantic thing and cause it to move so it doesn't accept the energy. All the energy comes back. If I let it yield a little bit, the more and more and more I let it yield, the less and less reflection I get. Fact. There's no counter force. There's no resistance.
Inertia. Prat.
Scum.
So it's the change in velocity, the acceleration, not one velocity as compared to another velocity.
It's just a fact. You want to go twice as fast, you apply twice the force. That's the fact Newton believed. That's the fact Galileo believed. That's the fact Descartes believed. You're claiming it's not true, all right, and you have no physical evidence to defend that nonsense. No credible physical evidence.
It's the change from one to the other. It's the acceleration he's talking about. And you misrepresent him.
So again, I just say that's a lie. I didn't misrepresent anything. I showed the text. I read the text in the video. It's a lie to say I misrepresented it. Despar concedes the text is there. He read it. So fuck you, you lying sack of shit. I didn't misrepresent anything, fucking liar.
If I'm arrogantly something, you're arrogantly something else. You're arrogantly denying the truth, and I'm arrogantly defending it.
Right, we've already been here and done that. That's right. If I'm right, I'm a god, and if you're right, I'm an asshole. Yeah, and the same goes for you morons. Okay, if I'm wrong, then you've done the honorable thing and put on your little suit of armor and done your little knightly duty. If I'm right, you're the scum of the fucking earth. because you really had nothing. You didn't have a real counter argument, and it turns out I was absolutely right with the simple demonstrations I provided, and you wouldn't touch them because you're cowards. You wouldn't go near any of these thought experiments because you know your theory fails dismally to be able to explain them. Dismal failure. And so you'll be shown for what you fucking are. Fucking scum.
Truth, that's right. You're an arrogant denier of truth, and I'm an arrogant defender of truth. Now, which one do you want to be? Which one would you rather be?
I already know which one I am. Okay, that's the whole point of this argument. I wouldn't be investing myself in this argument if I wasn't completely confident, okay, that all the logic and reasoning is on my side, and all the chicanery, lies, deception, distortions, perversions, F equals ma. That's what Newton said. No, he didn't. Liar. I mean, you're trying to wrap this crappy physics in all these other characters when no, it's all Leibnizian. You belong to a fucking idiotic cult. And that's all it fucking was. The only reason why the Deschardelet woman had any affection for it is because she was tutored as a little girl, okay, by a Leibnizian kook.
Does anybody want to be an arrogant denier of truth? Fuck no.
So again, he's calling me the denier, and what am I denying? Oh, they're non-existent evidence that it takes 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast. The fact that in 350 years they can't produce a single fucking experiment showing it. Their denial that momentum is conserved. They're claiming momentum isn't conserved. So even though Galileo, Descartes, and Newton all thought so, they don't think so, okay? That the whole conservation law is a big pile of nonsense because, no, you're conserving kinetic energy. You're not conserving momentum. I mean, it's just such a pile of shit. How the fuck this creature can get away with this crap? These fucking lies and distortions about what the argument really is. And again, I've been over the history. He's defending a contrivance of the 1800s. Pure contrivance. Let's force it to make sense by creating some other fake equations that get the same wrong answer.
So that's one. Now let's get back to this bloody lever.
Why?
You're lying again. You're misrepresenting again.
Okay, no, I didn't misrepresent anything. I played another video that shows the thing working with the weights tied to the top, okay, with the pressure being applied to the top of the lever. And I just observed that it balances, so it does work. In contradicting to your statement that it can't work because it's... And you use the words stable and unstable backward.
Spinning levers. Chevy Chase. Chevrolet.
Whatever that is.
You're saying, how does their lever work? How does their balance? I'm not disagreeing with them at all, as you say I am. I'm only disagreeing with the Pratt, and that's you. No,
whatever this crap is, you're saying that it's unstable if the weight is applied to the top. My argument was that no, levers work that way too. So there's some other reason because by your own theory, okay, it's the two hanging from the bottom creates less distance. Hanging from the top creates more distance. So therefore, they can't do the same thing.
Other Pratts around. When I say that this position is unstable, it means that when I take my hand away, it will balance in the horizontal. That's what I mean.
I got that part, and it's completely backward in the sense that the stability requires something to restore. That's called stable. When it doesn't restore, then it's unstable. So you're using the word completely backward from what Julius Sumner did. Obviously, he was saying when, you have the weights up high, it's unstable. When the weights are below the fulcrum, it's stable. It balances. It won't balance when it's above because it's catastrophic. Once it gains momentum, it gains more and more momentum, and you can't overcome the momentum. And when it's below, then the momentum is checked by the counterweight. Something like that. And I'm just saying that this, so obviously we're not even using the word stable in the same context. I pointed that out in the last video. It'd be nice if we were using the word stable for the same concept.
It will balance in the horizontal. After a certain oscillation, give or take, depending on the friction and other factors such as...
Yeah, right. So when you distort it, that is, you make it very out of balance, and it ends up gaining some kind of extra momentum, too much momentum, and it swings all the way around instead of stopping. So that's really the argument, right? The argument is the lever does work if you don't agitate it too aggressively. You don't imbalance it too aggressively. So clearly in the Chevrolet video, they didn't, swing it at 45-degree angles.
What I mean is, when I take my hand away, it's unstable and it will balance in the horizontal. Whether I've got them at the top or the bottom, it's unstable. At the top, it will turn over.
So he just said it again. It doesn't make any logical sense. So, okay, what are we going to blame for that? He just said they do the same thing when they don't do the same thing. So he's saying when they're at the top, it's unstable. When it's the bottom, they're stable. It'll restore. But it won't restore if it's on the top.
Then balance in the horizontal. As far as I know, that's what they were showing.
So I don't know what he means. As far as I know, that's what they were showing. I showed the clip twice. The weights are clearly being applied with the pressure on the top of the lever. I mean, you can see there's loops. The loops go over the top of the lever and press on the top of the lever. I mean, as far as you know? God, I mean, this is so dishonest. I just can't. You're just like, I really shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to defend myself against such outrageous stupidity. You're going to pretend you didn't see what I showed in the video, and you didn't even go to the trouble to look it up yourself? Oh, fuck.
I didn't even watch the video apart from the little clip on yours, and I thought, there's nothing in disagreement with what I'm saying. It's only your idiocracy.
All right, so there's really no point in playing this, right? I mean, he won't even concede the point. I mean, I'll draw it. I mean, fuck, but I'm not going to show it again. I mean, it's just so obvious what they did, and how could anybody disagree with that? I mean, like I said, there is a point where this is just such nonsense. I mean, this is just so bad. I mean, they can't even try to make a credible, sensible, logical, reasonable accusation or argument. I mean, god damn it. So, I mean, obviously the lever isn't as distorted as his, but they actually did use a lever that had a width, okay? It had a girth to it, okay, this dimension. It had some difference, all right? And they had a fulcrum clearly here, okay, below. All right, so it wasn't in the middle. I pointed all of this out in the video, right? Okay, they didn't do it this way. They did it with this fulcrum, okay? And so that is a difference. I don't know if it makes the difference, okay? And the simple truth is they had a metal loop, okay? And then a weight hung on that, all right? And they put the loop over, okay, the lever, all right? So obviously when the weight's hanging down, this is where the pressure will be applied, okay? The top of the lever is where the weight will be applied, right there. Wherever they position it, it's pushing down on the top of the lever. It's not pulling down on the bottom of the lever. No, it's pushing on the top of the lever. So as in his example, this exaggeration, I could draw the exaggeration. We're talking about these 4 points here. His argument is the lever fails if I use these top points, and it will successfully balance if I use these bottom points. And the argument is because as you turn this, you could sort of understand that as I turn it this way, this distance gets shorter as I turn it down. So as I move the lever down, this distance gets shorter for this lower one, and it gets further. The point sticks out here. Okay, this distance gets longer, okay, so the one distance is going in, and the other distance is going out. So obviously how close you are to the fulcrum isn't deciding whether it works or doesn't work, because this one spins, okay, and the other one doesn't, is his argument. Now I'm pointing out that obviously they had the lever configured with the points on the top of the lever. Alright, now I think the fulcrum, they did slide the fulcrum, but theoretically that just means it's a tiny weight change. It doesn't change any of these dynamics. And you could argue that it clearly screws up any notion that this distance thing is the key to the question, because obviously the closer I get to one object and the further away I get from the other object, it's not going to matter. But anyway, so they clearly did it from these locations, and the lever didn't just whirl around. Okay, it balanced. So it functioned just the same as if I had hung them from the bottom as if I hung them from the top. It did the same thing. It balanced. That's all I showed. That's what was in the video. He's just playing a game to say he's not disagreeing when he's saying this can't happen. I can't do it up here without it being unstable. Or as he says, stable. Yeah, there's no point. It's just... without it whirling around, it won't balance. So clearly they showed it balancing.
If this, in this position, the weights would have to be in a center line with the axis of rotation, and it would be stable, meaning...
So again, in all of these experiments, they're basically saying, look, the lever works fine when I have the thing tied way over here. You know, I can have a half mass way over here, and then this distance will be gigantic. I mean, how did this just doesn't get to the core subject, in my opinion. And I just, as I pointed out, I played the Professor Lewin video about center of gravity, that this really just has to do with center of gravity moving above or below, and that's what's making it stable or unstable. And I think that's the more coherent explanation, is likely to be have a derivative. It's going to be some derivative of a center of gravity argument, not whether or not something is closer or further from the fulcrum. Is not going to be the answer. I mean, we know that pulleys, the bigger you make the pulley, you know, and run a rope across the pulley, I mean, you could argue that in a sense the lever is just a pulley. You're just transferring the force as if you ran, you know, he has this circle on the other side. You could just think of it as just being the weight coming up one side and going down the other side. All right, but anyway, this isn't even a meaningful, in my opinion, this stuff isn't even meaningful to this kinetic energy versus momentum argument. It's a little detail about the, you know, little details about how levers actually make the transfer, and that's fine, but again, I don't think it's all that significant. I don't think it has anything to do with kinetic energy versus momentum. And I'm not making any bold assertions. I'm not making a draconian statement saying it absolutely happens this way. Every fucking video I've made some, I don't know, statement. Some, yes, maybe that is it. Maybe. I don't know. I said it clearly in the other video. I'm not making some assertion beyond the fact that levers work. That's my assertions, that levers balance, and I can put the weight on top of the lever and I can make them balance. I can put the weight hanging from the lever and I can make it balance. And it just depends on the arrangement of this fulcrum and the length of the lever, but it does work. And I'm partially saying that because I have a freaking balance over there that works. It doesn't swing all the way around.
If I took my hand away, it would stay there. And I've shown that in the video in case you forgot. Go back and look at them again.
No, and again, I pointed out, well, what's exactly the dynamic? Because frankly, if you add up, obviously the heavier object has more gravitational pressure technically, and this, that. I'm looking for the explanation. You're saying, well, fuck the explanation. It's doing it for a reason. Why isn't it moving? Why isn't it balancing? Why isn't it see the disparity that's obvious?
And educate yourself. If the weights are in a line through the axis of rotation, if you took your hand away, it'll stay in that position. Whatever position you put them in.
I don't know. So why don't you show that? Oh, that's right. That has to go through the center of the lever. Right. So I've already conceded that argument. Multiple times I've said, yes, okay, I understand. And if I force the masses to stick, that is, I tie the masses to the lever instead of allowing them to hang, I get a different outcome also. I've conceded those points. I said, yes, that's how it works. Yes, I can see that. This other point we're arguing is specific to you saying that this corner makes a difference to that corner. That's the argument of these videos are about.
No oscillation and no return to horizontal. Anything else?
And I'm saying I'm not even sure that is absolutely correct, because frankly, if you make the fulcrum small enough, I think it doesn't stay. I can't get mine to stay in one position, and they're the wrong position. So it depends, I guess, on what kind of fulcrum you have, or whether it is precisely in the middle or not. Because any tiny difference from that, and it seems to balance just fine.
It always will return to horizontal. And every movement is predicted by the geometry.
So he said it again. So he won't link to the reference that he's using to say it's predicted by the geometry. And again, I would argue that geometry doesn't predict it, but fine. Because obviously they're two different geometries. They both can balance at the top or at the bottom. I mean, I showed the Chevrolet video. They have the weights applied at the top, and it balances.
The geometry of the force times the arm. And when it's in here like that, you said another bloody lie. You said the arms are the same.
Oh, I said another bloody lie. So we don't have any quote of this. So when he has it in this position, I said something about the arms being the same. Lie. Complete lie. It never happened. Didn't happen. I didn't do it. It's a lie.
Same. When I said the arms are not the same, you said, oh, the arms are the same.
I didn't say that. That's a lie. So he's weaseling out. He's using this bullshit excuse that he can't quote somebody accurately. He can't play their video, so he can just lie about what they said. Didn't happen.
I thought, go back and watch the video that you're complaining about and just listen to it. Explains it. A child could understand it.
Okay, so there's nothing. This argument is moot. I don't know why I made this video. It's just too stupid. He says he can't see in the Chevrolet video that the weights are being applied to the top of the lever. His obligation is to explain why that lever is different. Now, I pointed out the two distinctions. I mean, yes, that lever is on a fulcrum below the lever, below the stick. It's not in the center, so maybe that's the difference. But he's not providing any information to tell us why their lever worked and his doesn't as a balance.
You're worse than a child. You can teach a child. He wants to learn. You don't.
So you can't accurately paraphrase, you can't listen to videos properly, and you'll do zero research. So yeah, you're in no position to point any fingers.
Want to learn. You've got another ulterior motive. This arm is now longer because it's the perpendicular from the force.
Yeah, you keep saying the same thing over and over again. And the fact is that from the top location, they made it work. So you can say it can't happen, but it did happen. The perpendicular was in the exact opposite. It was closer on this side than on this side, and yet the lever didn't restore. You're saying your lever won't restore. Their lever did.
Force vertical. The perpendicular is here. That is longer than the perpendicular arm there to there. So the arms are not the same.
Okay, so now he's going from the bottom here to the top over here. I thought the idea was to measure this distance at the bottom. Bottom, bottom. This distance is longer than this distance here. So now he's going from the top of the lever to the bottom of the other lever? Sorry, that's not what you illustrated previously. So that's a different question.
The geometry is what we're referring to. This arm is longer than this arm in that position.
So he's saying this arm, he's saying the distance that's on this line going all the way up, and this line going all the way. So obviously this distance is bigger than this distance from the fulcrum. And it's exactly the inverse from the top corners. So the top corners, this side is the short side, and this side is the long side. And all I pointed out was, well, that can't be causing the distinction, because I can put weights on the top and it will balance.
In that position, both arms are the same. Either you can't get it because you're too thick, or you, as I suspect, you don't want to get it because you don't want to learn.
Okay, so I'm just saying, he says that every time he puts this, flips this around, so these things are on the top, the two weights are hanging from the top, it will spin around. It can't be used as a balance. I just showed that no, the Chevrolet video proves you can put the weights on the top. Now, I could put the weights on the top of mine, but mine's such a thin lever, I don't know if it could possibly make any difference. There's not enough dimension to it for it to be a significant factor.
You don't want to be taught. You're going to be on your own against the whole...
Whatever. I've been on my own since the day I arrived on this planet of morons. I have been, more reasonable and rational and logical than any of the mush wandering about, and that's just a fact, so I'm used to that. That is not news. That you people are really fucking dishonest and stupid.
Well, except for a few other Looney Tunes. I feel sorry for you because you're going to lose. You can only...
Alright, obviously, again, I don't feel sorry. You can't get worse than you deserve, frankly. It just can't happen. You're a despicable creep shit of a human being. These lies you keep saying I said something, you can't show I said it, you misquote Newton, you just lie about everything. You're just such a despicable liar.
Lose this argument. You're not going to overturn 2,000 years of human...
So again, he's arguing that for 2,000 years they believed in 1/2 mv squared. No, they didn't. Fuckhead. It's just too stupid. I need to get away with that kind of crap. So he won't reference us to Archimedes' explanation of the lever. So show us a reference where the lever is explained by a primitive or a modern. The very fact that there isn't any such reference, okay, that they're pretty hard to find, is just more evidence of how undercooked this physics is. That you have a science that you really just don't care about getting any of these elemental facts correct. You'll continue to call it the Young double-slit experiment, when the Young configuration doesn't produce a double-slit pattern. I mean, what the fuck? It produces a single-slit pattern. I mean, the cheats are just so obvious and egregious, and you're all okay with that. Not a single one of you will stand up and say, wow, they really shouldn't do that. They really should have repeated the Eddington experiment. You won't even say it. You can't say the words. You're the cowards, afraid to give an inch because you know you're going to lose miles. As soon as you start conceding, yeah, you're right, the science is kind of mushy and silly. And they never really tightened any of this up. They never fucking decided to go find out the truth. They never crashed the cars. They never poured the gas in and figured out how much gas they used. They didn't care about the fucking truth. It was just Jesus, 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 Jesus.
Evolution. You're a big fan of that, so... you can only lose. It's a sad thing, really, but it's entertaining in a way. But just don't call me or others liars. When it's you.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, anybody viewing this video, you'll have to judge for yourself. But I mean, he's misquoted me, he's misquoted Newton, he's misquoted thousands of years of knowledge. He just is a compulsive liar. Every fucking video is full of lies as premises and axioms. Newton didn't say F equals ma. It's a fact. He didn't say it.
I don't know what else I can say about that. The only people I disagree with is you. I say people because it's like you've got two personalities. So.
Well, this doesn't even make any sense. You don't disagree with anybody about anything ever. I mean, it's just such amazing crap. And then you're really a Dimpleton.
So, you're the prat. Well, you might have two personalities, but they're both god-awful. Go back to school.
So he says it again. Okay, get glasses. Okay,
I'm
I don't know.
this.
So I guess, look, I guess, what, should I just play the Chevrolet video again? I mean, really, it seems ridiculous to have to do that. But, what the fuck, right? I think it's still here. Yeah. So, yeah. This was too complicated for him. He couldn't follow along.
The 10-pound weight on this end.
So you can see clearly the loop in the weight, right? You see the little loop there? I mean, should I make the video extra big or something? Will that help you understand? See the little loop there? That means the weight's going to hang on top of the lever. That's what the loop is going to mean. There's just no way to get around that. It's going to put the pressure on the top of the lever. It's going to push down on the top of the lever. Now, the lever doesn't have much dimension. It's only whatever, a ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch. Okay, but it is just the truth that the weights are hanging from the top. They're dangling from the top of the lever. You just can't miss that fact. And he puts the weight on, and it doesn't go swirling around. It doesn't do something totally silly. It basically just balances.
5 pounds, balance 10.
Now it did hit the ground, but we know it was already slowing down when it did that, so that's not an issue. And then it oscillates. Well, he doesn't let us see all the oscillations, but we know it just oscillated perfectly. So, you know, fuck you and this bullshit. I didn't see it. I don't really know what the video showed. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, bullshit. I could show. You can see, see, right around. The interesting one is this one, but I guess that might just be a camera defect. Oh, that's the fulcrum. Yeah, okay. He has the fulcrum all the way at one end. Now that doesn't matter because obviously this huge weight is making up more than enough of the extra lever missing. The little bit of lever missing doesn't matter because the weight is so huge by comparison to the weight of the lever. So, but anyway. I mean, it's just too silly. So he's calling me a liar, okay, because I played this video. And it shows what it shows. But I'm a liar. Okay, got it. Too ridiculous. Alright. This is just... Ugh. Anyway, I'll pause and see if there's anything else. We do have some crappy lying comments from the Crappy Lying Club. So I guess we'll read those. So Piro, the coward, right? I mean, he knows how to make videos. He could make a video answering my simple pose about the spaceship, or answering how levers function, or drawing a hydraulic system, or any one of these examples I've provided. He could counter them, but he doesn't. So let's just understand the cowardice. But he'll talk this shit in videos. This absolute shit. Okay? He'll account for nothing. He'll directly respond to nothing. He claims momentum isn't conserved. That's the theory he's defending, and yet he'll make no explanation for how that's a viable theory. All right. One thing about Gary, it is hard to get him to make particular predictions. So what a fucking lie. I'm sitting there overtly telling you the spaceship isn't turned by your kinetic energy. I'm overtly telling you that if I drop a 10 mass going 5 on one side of the lever, I'm going to get a 5 mass going 10 on the other side if I put them at the right configuration. And the fact is the momentum will be conserved because that's what levers do, and your kinetic energy theory will be proven irrational. proven irrational because it'll be free energy. How the fuck, these liars? How can they lie like this? I mean, all my videos are covered in me predicting you will never, ever, ever show it takes 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast. I mean, what? It's just insane lies. So you can show him the results. What is this? One thing about Gary, it's hard to get him to make particular predictions so you can show him the results. What a lie. I mean, it's insane. They're the ones not showing us their predictions. Go ahead and predict for me. Okay, does the spaceship turn? I shoot the bullet out one side of the spaceship. I shoot the recoiling gun out the other side in 2 separate instances that happen almost at the same time. And what does my spaceship do? Does it pay attention to the 2,000 joules going out one side and the 2 joules going out the other side and behave appropriately? I just shot 2,000 watts out one side. I shot 2 watts out the other side. There's a huge, giant differential by your fucking wacky theory. What happens to the spaceship? Does it turn? Well, no, it doesn't. NASA knows it doesn't because that's not how it landed on the moon. I mean, you're the gutless cowards that are afraid to say it. Go ahead and say it turns. Go ahead and say it. So we have you on the record, you lying piece of shit. Let's see. But over time, we have arrived at the very most simple one that addresses the root of it all. So they won't show you the simplest experiment. They won't show you taking 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast ever. They won't show you how the surface of when you roll objects on a surface, they won't show you how the object moving twice as fast puts 4 times the energy into the ground. So they won't show you that if I go faster across this scale that I always weigh the same. No matter how fast I go across the scale, I always weigh the same. They won't show you that experiment. So obviously it doesn't happen. That is, springs don't store momentum. So at least he said that much, right? So, you know, well, where's the conservation then? Why is conservation of momentum a thing? Why does Professor Lewin say in a spring experiment, nature can finagle kinetic energy, but nature can't finagle momentum? Why the fuck does the MIT physics professor say that? And why aren't you on his comment board saying, why do you believe that conservation of momentum shit? That's not true. Oh, amazing. Just a fucking amazing. Springs don't store weight. I mean, momentum is weight. Springs don't store weight, is what he's saying. It's hilarious. He's such a coward. Oh, he's such a fucking despicable, lying coward. Okay, he's been shown that they don't by Physics Michael, so that's just a lie, right? The experiment is clearly a pile of shit. He created free momentum. So he forced an experiment to come out physics his way, and by forcing it, he made free momentum, which is free energy. He got the same spring to create more energy. So if I put heavy things on a spring, I get more energy out of the spring than if I put a light thing on it. That's their fucking theory they're defending. That it's not momentum. Like I put a heavy pea in, I put 1 pea in, it shoots so far. I put 2 peas in, it doesn't, it shoots even further, right? The heavier, the more weight I put in, the more energy I get into the object somehow. The theory is completely even backwards to their own fucking nonsense, in the sense that heavier objects make more momentum. And we know we saw that because he mentioned it. Yeah, and I pointed out how, well, you just proved your experiment's a pile of shit because you didn't conserve the momentum, okay? And Professor Lewin made it kind of clear, nature can't finagle it. Okay, and he says it can't be right. Well, free momentum is free energy. So that's your problem. You have to explain how you can make more momentum, get more momentum out of the spring. The comparison would be better with a bigger mass differential in terms of doing it with less precision. What? He already had twice the mass differential. He's creating more than twice the momentum. He created more than twice the momentum in the experiment. fact. Okay. Say 1 mass versus 3. Well, he was pretty close to that. It was 2.5 at least, maybe 2.7. So he doesn't even pay any attention, Piero. And he would have to do it himself. Why would I have to do any of this? You can't prove a theory you've had for 350 years? Yeah, you can't show a single decent, credible experiment? Amazing liar. Okay. The other thing is he knows, and we know he knows, that we say momentum is conserved, but as vectors that can be canceled out. Well, that doesn't explain simple arguments, okay, about, I mean, you can't use that excuse to say we mean in different directions. So okay, I'll illustrate it again. I mean, he's just lying, okay, about what the experiment demonstrates, and it clearly demonstrated it. So, there's nothing you can do because these people are just compulsive liars. So, I mean, it's simple enough, right? I mean, there's no logic to it. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fit with cork guns. It doesn't fit with kids' toys. It isn't the reality, okay? The truth is you can't compress the spring the same amount. So I use the same mechanism, compress the spring the same amount. It has the same exact compression, okay? Compression equals compression, okay? They're both compressed exactly the same. I put 2 1 masses on it, and then I put 2 2 masses on it. All right, in this circumstance, okay, and I release the spring. Okay, yes, momentum is conserved in the sense that the same amount of energy goes this way as goes that way. And in this case, the same amount goes this way and it goes this way. But the problem is, in his video, okay, is this only had 100, let's say, as momentum, and this had 200. So obviously, in the experiment, I created a total of 200 here, okay, and I created a total of 400 here. And that can't happen. That's not what springs do. Springs give you back what you put in. So whatever I put in, the force I used to compress the spring had to be 400, or was it 200? What was it? Because this can't make any sense. I mean, if I go to 3 masses, does it mean it goes to 900? I mean, where does this nonsense of yours end? And if I go to small enough objects, do I get nothing? Is that the argument? It doesn't leave with any momentum. Momentum isn't conserved. So it makes no sense. There's no conservation of the energy in the spring. And when you put the uneven objects on is where this becomes more clear. Obviously, if I put a 1 mass on one side, okay, momentum is still conserved. Okay, so you can see this, right? Yeah, so if I put a 1 mass on one side of the spring and a 2 mass on this side of the spring, momentum is conserved. This leaves with 1/2 the velocity of this one. Now their argument is this has more kinetic energy, that somehow the spring gave the lighter object more kinetic energy. It doesn't make any sense, okay, that it has more kinetic energy. All right, so it leaves with twice the velocity squared. That means this has more energy, twice the energy. So somehow this side got twice as much energy as this side. Momentum is perfectly conserved and makes perfect sense, but kinetic energy doesn't. There's no conservation of kinetic energy here. It makes no sense at all. How does the spring know to give this one twice as much energy? And where did it get the other extra energy from? Doesn't make any sense. What fucking liars. They just keep doing it. All right, he knows and we know that the momentum is conserved, but as vectors that can cancel out. So again, the vector crap was made up in the 1840s. Has nothing to do with reality. We know train tracks. We know the train's kinetic energy, its motion relative to the Earth. is in a vector line. It's moving in a straight line. It's going one way. It would be idiotic to say it doesn't know it's going in a straight line, that it's a vector. The MV part is a vector. How do you change it? Putting a square on it and a 1/2 in front of it. How does that turn the energy into a scalar? How does that turn it into non-directional? Of course it's directional. So this is all, I've called it baby talk. It's worse than that. It's just, this is bug noises. This is just such nonsense. That's not what we mean by energy, so we don't say the energy isn't conserved by the spring or collision, but that the amount of momentum created by energy depends on the mass. So again, more baby talk. The amount of momentum, we can make different amounts of momentum, and that's nonsense. You can't. So they'll never show that experiment where they made the free momentum and it was actually collected and actually did work. So it's just more lies about the fact that they have any credible evidence that they ever did an experiment where they made more momentum. What I don't know is if he understand that energy does add together the way he thinks momentum does. So again, it can't add up. It's a squared function. You've broken any continuity between mass and velocity. There's a direct consistency between the surface of the bread and how much butter you can spread. There's a definite consistency between the size of a bucket and how much it can hold. There is no negative energy. Obviously, you think there is. Okay. In classical physics, or as far as we know in any physics. So it's more just baby talk. You're clearly saying that you're conserving momentum by going in the reverse direction. Now, obviously, in these experiments, you'll say there's no work being done because, this cancels that. So there's no consistency to your theory. Obviously, if I compress a spring, I'm going to do work in the universe when I release it. And it's just idiotic for you to say there's no work being done. Does he know he keeps saying we say energy does what we actually are saying momentum does? So this is just more gibberish with words. I've drawn it as clearly as it can be drawn, and you won't play my video and actually show where I'm wrong. Okay, so it's just more lies, more contrivances. You're a gutless coward. You won't draw the spaceship. You won't draw the lever. You won't draw even the spring example. You won't draw any of it and explain where I made any errors in the facts. Okay, you're saying that you can make free momentum. I've pointed out how free momentum is a complete disaster because I can make a free energy machine out of it. You haven't explained how that won't work. You're just such despicable liars. All right, is he really stuck on this and just can't even realize we think they are two different quantities? Again, I don't see how different quantities of what. Newton understood to be momentum to be energy. Galileo did, and Descartes did. How do you understand it as something else? There's no other else. What else is there? It either is energy or it is not. Okay, and I can't conceive of how there's no such thing as energy, so fuck you. This is absolute nonsense. You're saying your fake, contrived formula gets the right answers. I'm saying it always gets wrong answers. It's just sometimes just like a stopped clock. It's right, but it's not right for any good reason. Or is it conscious? I mean, this is just amazing. You have absolutely no evidence. You can't show it taking 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast. You can't show the 8-pound bowling ball knocking down more pins. You can't show the smaller wrecking ball knocking down more buildings. You can't show a single piece of reasonable evidence to support this nonsense, and yet you talk with this arrogance, you motherfucking piece of shit. I mean, just amazing. They have no evidence, and they talk this shit. This is worse than religion. I think they at least say, well, I have faith. They at least concede they're being unreasonable. But these pieces of pus sit there and pretend they're being rational and that they're obeying rational rules of logic when they're just constantly contradicting themselves. We think it because we haven't seen it, and we don't need to see it. You don't have to show us anything. We'll believe without any evidence at all. I think this is what most interesting part about Gary, which is he's This is his conscious way of buying time to make better arguments. I mean, this is just such a lie. I mean, what are you talking about? I've been making the same arguments for 2 fucking years. And you pussies, you cowards, you despicable lying cowards can't draw a lever. Okay, and which is he's really stuck on. So we know if you could actually produce the experiment where you hit the lever with the 10-ton train and the 5-ton train doesn't leave at twice the velocity, there you've proven your theory. But you won't produce that experiment. I'm glad we finally got this to this point, actually. If you think it's messy now, you should have seen it at the start. I mean, the start was nothing compared to this in terms of the weight and depth of your lies. I mean, I was a lot less direct in my points. I mean, it was a lot fudgier for me even to, put it all together. I hadn't done all the Leibniz research. I haven't done this and I haven't done that. So, all I had basically was, the fuel argument and a few other ones where, the collision argument. What do you mean twice as fast doesn't do 4 times the damage? That's nonsense. And then we had to go through the clay experiments. All of that was new. And then, somebody had to analyze the clay experiments and actually realize, oh, yeah, it makes a difference what shape the object is you drop into the clay. The shape of the object will make a difference. Oh, you're such a liar. At least we know now an experiment where he made a prediction. Springs store momentum. Yes, always. They store weight. Weight is momentum. That is falsifiable with very simple means. Good! Do it, please! Show us the experiment where you don't compress a spring with momentum. Where the kinetic energy does it. Show us that. Show us the 10-ton train going 5 miles an hour failing to compress a spring the same amount as a 5-ton train going 10 miles an hour. Show us that. It's a far cry from me describing experiments with lasers that would show there is no absolute frame. Oh, so more bullshit about his experiments. He proved it with a laser. No, you didn't prove any of it. Okay. Of reference, which was way too abstract to get and unwilling to purpose. I mean, I tried the experiment, and he sits there and says I was unwilling to wrap my head around it. But I observed the obvious. The laser at 200 yards, the dot was now this big. How the fuck are you going to find this little tiny difference you're looking for in a dot that's now this big? It went from this big to this big. Yeah, that's pretty much impossible, frankly. And I pointed that out. Anyway, in contrast to that, springs store energy. Yes, check. He agrees. Whatever. Springs store momentum. He can check. They don't. So why don't you show me the experiment that demonstrates that springs don't store momentum? Where is that? I mean, you showed me the one where they create free momentum, obviously. I mean, but that obviously is a pile of shit. I completely assert that his fucking experiment was a pile of shit. Okay? It was junk science. It was pseudoscience. The experiment with the spring and the 2 objects of different mass clearly says if momentum and energy are the same or not. It doesn't even require a square root. Either the momentum of the 1/3 mass will match the 1 mass or it won't. I don't even know what he's talking about there. What experiment are you talking about? So there's no reference to anything there. But clearly the Michael guy did this silly experiment like I just described, where I just take it to these extremes and it already becomes ludicrous. I put a small object in front of the spring, I get nothing in terms of mass and velocity out. I put heavier and heavier objects on, I get more and more momentum. It makes absolutely no logical sense. It doesn't happen in the real world. But these gutless pieces of shit aren't going to show up, and prove that that's possible. Because again, it's free energy. It's easily exploited free energy. Even when he does make a very specific prediction. So again, every one of my fucking arguments is a specific prediction. I mean, I just can't believe these liars are this desperate that they can't even admit that, no, every one of his videos he's predicting that the truth, you will not knock down twice as many pins with the 8-pound bowling ball going twice as fast. It won't fucking goddamn happen. It won't come close to happening. It can't happen. It doesn't happen. That's why professional bowlers aren't using 8-pound bowling balls. It's because it doesn't fucking happen. That's my prediction. You will never show it happening. You will never collect this fucking kinetic energy crap you say exists. You will never show me the bullet lighting more light bulbs than the fucking recoiling gun. You will never collect the energy from the objects, and you will never, ever, ever show it taking 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast. You lying sacks of stinking shit. Okay. Oh, God, I mean, just despicable. Ugh. Take a little pause. All right, so this is the liar brozo. So let's just understand who this is. The guy who still has a video up where the prediction, my prediction was 12, their prediction was 16. He got the answer of 14 and declared victory. Declared it a complete affirmation of his theory. So this is how desperate this fucker is. This is what a desperate liar is. He basically does an experiment proving he can't do the experiment right because he gets a perfectly non-answer. I mean, as much a non-answer as you could possibly get. He obviously failed to do the experiment correctly. The truth is one or the other. The truth isn't neither. All right. So it's just too stupid. He's proven he can't do an experiment worth shit, and then he's proven he's such a liar that he'll claim victory when it clearly wasn't a victory. All right. So what credibility does this fucking moron have? All right. Even when he does make a very specific prediction of his own volition, so every one of my videos is a prediction of my own volition, for fuck's sake. He somehow manages to sidestep it. Exactly how? Erase the past. I don't know what past I'm erasing, but whatever. I've clearly pointed out that over the 10 years I've been making these arguments, I've fixed some errors, and I've made arguments better now than I made 10 years ago. Is that some kind of dramatic, unexpected concession? By the time the experiment has been perfected far beyond his overtly simplistic, so this is an asshole again. He's talking about doing perfect experiments when he fucking claimed victory. He couldn't even figure out that 14 is not 16, for fuck's sake. How dare this idiot talk about doing anything perfectly when he's claiming victory with completely as flawed as possible experiments. You can't have the experiment more flawed. There's no more flawed answer to get. Okay, or just how easy it would be to test. No, how easy it is to fake. And he's already admitted that's exactly what he does. He does the experiment a whole bunch of different ways, and he'll show us the ones that come out his way, and he won't show us the ones that don't come out his way. So fucking simple what he's doing. Okay, confirmation bias all over the fucking place. So he's so easy to be a confirmation bias cheater, and that's all he is. He's had no intention of doing it and actually said so. And he will have no intention of producing your fucking video evidence. Okay, and you have no intention of doing so. I predicted that your last experiment would be exactly what you did, okay? That you would contrive a way to do the experiment completely wrong, okay? To break it, to fuck it. And that's exactly what you did because you don't know what angular momentum is. He's claiming there's no difference between rolling a hollow object and rolling a solid object, when that experiment has been done literally thousands of times. It's one of the ones they do for elementary school children. Okay, so, talk about denial of facts. All right, I'm thinking of one where he proposed it would settle matters. So here he's saying it again. It would settle matters because you don't understand what gravity is and you don't know what velocity is. So they prove my point for me. As I pointed out, there's no theoretical room for any other answer when you shoot something off a cliff. If something's going twice the velocity, it will fall in exactly the same amount of time. It'll land. You can't change the time it hits the ground. And the fact is, and in that time, if it's going twice as fast, it's going to go exactly twice as far. If you do the experiment and you get something other than a 2-to-1 relationship, it means it proves you've done the experiment wrong. There's no possibility to get any other answer than a 2-to-1 relationship, because the vector this way and the vector this way have nothing to do with each other. The rate at which it falls is consistent and by gravity at the same fucking speed, and the rate this way isn't being affected by anything to do with the gravitational thing. So you have to go twice as far in twice the time. So again, he's the one who doesn't understand. That experiment proved again that you can't do experiments correctly, but you got again a theoretically impossible answer. Will you respond to the fact that it's theoretically impossible? There's no variable. You're not running it across a surface. You're not taking the energy out of the object. You're just flying it through the air. You have to explain how you got something other than a 2-to-1 relationship claiming twice the velocity. If it's moving twice as fast in space, it can only go twice the distance, moron. It can't go 4 times the distance in space. Retard. Oh, amazing. I can't believe he's using this argument again. I think of where he proposed it would settle matters once and for all if someone, anyone but him, launched any object off a table edge, then measured the half-mass object magically going twice the distance under the same conditions. I said the half-mass would be going twice the speed. That was the argument, retard. Half the mass, twice the velocity. Same momentum. You say one has twice as much kinetic energy. That's the argument. So it has twice the kinetic energy, but it won't go twice as far. 4 times as far. All right. He predicted it was impossible for it to come out 1-to-4. Yet it did. So he's just did it again. He just proved again he doesn't understand any of this physics. So I'll just illustrate it again. What he's doing is so fucking stupid, because there is no room for his argument to win. He can't possibly defend it. It's impossible. It's theoretically impossible. Launching them into the atmosphere is essentially the same as launching them into space in this example, because we're not pushing feathers. So the amount of air resistance is negligible. It's not even close to being a factor. It's not pulling all of the energy out of the object or anywhere close. So the simple argument is you have 2 objects, you're going to launch them off a cliff, okay, a 1 mass going 1 velocity, let's just say a 2 mass, and a 1 mass going 2 velocity, same momentum. So this one has twice the velocity of this one. Now, you do this experiment in space, what's going to happen? Well, if this is going twice the velocity, it doesn't matter what time I unit, right? What finish line I use. This one will always be twice as far as this one, right? So you can understand, if they were in space, this one goes this far, this one goes this far. In any unit of time, it's going to be a 2-to-1 relationship. You can't change that. That's just a fact, because you're not pulling the energy out. They're not losing energy anywhere. They're not rolling on a surface. They're not being... no friction is being applied. Well, the same is true in this circumstance. So the object going twice the velocity has to travel twice the velocity still. This one travels 1 velocity. The rate at which gravity pushes them down is exactly the same. So they will hit the ground, even though this one's higher, just they're really the same height. So you have to understand this is really the same height arrow. So this arrow is the same length as this arrow, okay? So this action is exactly the same for both objects. So it's essentially duplicating what happens in space, and all you have is yes, this will be this parabola, this will be this parabola, and it will be a 1-to-2 relationship. Twice the velocity has to go twice the distance. It doesn't have any option. There's no theoretical ground for any other outcome. He just said he proved this goes 4 times. He says he just proved it. He proved that the 1 mass goes 4 times as far. He proved it. Okay, so he proved something impossible. Because again, you're not pulling the energy out. You're not measuring how much energy the objects have. You're just allowing them to function as they have to function. and it is a fact that they have to hit the ground. Even the one hitting out here has to hit the ground at the same time this one hits the ground. They are in the same gravitational force. They'll be pulled down at exactly the same rate, and their velocity, there really isn't anything in the way. So he says he proves something that's theoretically impossible. So does he have any credibility? He says his experiments are worth people paying attention to. Well, he's claiming he has an experiment where he proves something that's impossible. It's impossible. It can't happen. Will Piro chime in and say, yes, you're right, that can't happen? You can't change that the velocity vector is unaffected by the velocity down. The two vectors are independent forces acting independently, and there's no fucking possible way in a semi-non-frictional environment for you to get a 4-to-1 outcome. Can't happen. Twice the velocity is only twice the velocity. It's not 4 times the velocity. It can't go 4 times further in the same amount of time. It's not fucking possible. And so, again, quoting him, it was impossible for it to come out at 4-to-1, yet it did. So again, he's just proving he can't do an experiment. He's proving it, that every time he fucks it up. Okay. Now, did he stand by his own words saying the results would settle matters once and for all? They settled it. Yes, they settled matters once and for all by proving you don't understand how physics works, and you clearly don't understand that you can't do something impossible. All right. Of course he didn't. More lying. Okay, and did he pay even $10 for someone else to try it? So where is this? I've asked people, I've offered $500 for people to do these lever experiments or some other experiment that would decide the issue once and for all. So again, that's on the record. Liar. Okay. Having admitted he had no intention of testing his own predictions. Oh, I have no intention of doing bad experiments like you. I have every intention of encouraging you and others to sit there and say to the science community that they ought to use all of their hardware and do these experiments, that they ought to do them well. Now, you won't say those words, that they ought to do them well, because you don't want well-done experiments, because you can't lie about what the truth is then. Of course, he didn't. He knew it was $10 wasted on verifying he was simply wrong. So again, he's still asserting that it is possible that you can take something with twice the velocity, throw it in the air, okay, and it'll go 4 times the distance. He's asserting it. I take 2 objects, I throw them, one at twice the speed of the other. It doesn't matter whether it's a half mass or not. It makes no difference really. I'm just going to throw one at twice the velocity of the other. He's asserting, okay, that the one is somehow going to go 4 times as far. If it has half the mass, I guess. Because he has to cheat the momentum argument to make the more kinetic energy. But I'm just saying it's obviously not going to happen. Twice the velocity isn't 4 times the energy. It's just an absolute nonsense. And it's just a fact that it's a nonsense. And that experiment pretty much does show it. You can't break the simple fact that it can only go twice as fast. Okay, claiming it takes 4 times the energy to go twice as fast is not something you're going to be able to show in an experiment where that's true. All right, so then here's another statement by this fucking liar. All right, this was great to hear. So this mush about how he didn't pay any attention to the Chevrolet video and couldn't care less about what it showed. Okay. You're pretty much saying that we are all thinking but sometimes lack the eloquence or energy to even bother trying. So it's just a bunch of ad hominem attacks. Okay, fine, whatever. Anymore, because it is exhausting talking to someone so willfully ignorant. Ignorant of what? So again, they won't tell us what I'm ignorant of. And he just demonstrated his profound ignorance where he's still claiming he did an experiment where he proved something theoretically impossible to be possible. That in space I could throw something twice this fast and it goes 4 times as far in the same amount of time. Can't possibly do that. I mean, the whole thing, it can only go 30 miles an hour. It can't go 60 miles an hour. If it's going 30 miles an hour, it can't go 60 miles an hour. And he's calling other people willfully ignorant. Okay. I'm the first to admit I lack the basic education just as Gary does. So again, more lies. I've gone to the trouble. See, you need whatever. You need cartoons in your educational material. I can watch physics lectures, unlike you, and find them interesting. So I have a huge advantage over you, and that advantage is showing all the time. Okay, to meaningfully comment on what Newton and others said or didn't say. Well, those quotes are pretty easy to find. So again, I did quote exactly whatever the English translation of Newton's Principia. And he clearly says, you want to go twice as fast, you apply twice the force, not 4 times the force. We already know what Newton believed. So again, quit pretending Newton believed in kinetic energy. He didn't. He didn't believe in mv squared. He didn't believe in the living force. You liars. All I've ever been able to do is these mechanical type issues is test. So again, his test is I proved the impossible. I've claimed victory when my answer was completely, as perfectly wrong as you could get. It was so perfectly in the middle of being a right answer. It was completely in between yes and no. Whether Gary's claims hold true, and not a single one ever has. Well, that's to my credit. Okay, a guy who can't do an experiment right to save his life has proven me wrong. Oh, gee, I'm so concerned. No, that's to my benefit. On electrical matters, I know he's talking utter laughable nonsense from the get-go. No, I'm the one who understands the difference between an amp, a volt, and a watt. Okay, and that if you're going to measure the energy of something, you have to measure the wattage, not just the voltage or just the amperage. You have to measure the wattage. Okay, if you want to know how many joules it is, you need to know how many watts it is, moron. I don't really need to test anything except to show him. So again, he doesn't need to understand. Okay, but so he doesn't care. He really doesn't care that there's no evidence in all of physics. Okay, they never repeated the Eddington experiment. He doesn't care. He's convinced. It was a British guy who did it, so yeah, it must be the truth. But he pulls the same trick there too, misrepresenting things he's gullible fans are easy to fall for. So this isn't about gullible fans. This is just about a record. A history record is being created right now. And it's going to be easy to dissect who's lying here. Okay, who's misrepresenting, who's full of shit. All right, it's not going to be difficult to see. All right, so you're going to be buried on the ash heap of motherfucking lying troll, because that's what you are. You're a liar, and all you do is try to package your lies, okay, in some sort of arrogant vernacular that you have some superiority on any level whatsoever, when you have none. You have no credibility. You state things that are patently untrue, and you just couldn't care less. Patently. I once used 2 electrically identical meters to measure the current generated in his 10-ton, 5-ton example. And just because the manufacturer had printed a scale a little differently, still measured exactly the same units, he argued I wasn't using the same meters, so it didn't count. I argued that your fucking mechanism, again, isn't measuring watts. Okay, I actually swapped the meters over just to be sure they were no difference. I see he expects somebody to watch his cruddy little videos, and I know the answer is wrong, and I have to dissect what you did wrong. So I have to point out, oh, well, your launching device is a piece of shit. Oh, you're hitting the object, you're not pushing the object. I mean, he wants me to, and he'll pick the one defect that wasn't relevant, but he won't explain how, oh, well, he also stated, because I also pointed out the other defects, because every one of his experiments has more than one defect. Like using really light, he lifted very light objects, by banging into something, and he basically launched them. So he gave them launching velocities. So he wasn't lifting, he was launching. All right, base one on the other, and because I don't show that, I had to take it on the chin when he falsely accused me of dishonesty. Well, I again accused you of creating a methodology, a methodology for the experiment that wasn't even credible. In the sense you're either measuring voltage or you're measuring amperage, but you're not measuring wattage. I could have repeated it to show him, but it honestly just didn't feel worth the effort. Okay, so let's understand. He did another experiment where he actually put a generator on a cart and they used actual LEDs, and I had to point out to them that, well, those are diodes. They only turn on at a minimum voltage, so you can't measure any of the voltage if it's below that minimum. And on top of that, okay, voltage isn't amperage. Okay, it isn't wattage. All right, so using something that's voltage sensitive isn't going to tell you how many watts. Okay, because it was clear he had no interest in observing the results and weighing them up to arrive at the conclusion that he may need a rethink. You're the asshole who needs to rethink. And again, this just shows his lack of credibility. He still has the video up where he's claiming victory when he has clearly the wrong answer. Clearly a wrong answer, and he's claiming. He's basically saying 14 equals 16 when it doesn't. Clearly doesn't. So he's just that much of a liar that he'll leave a video up where he is completely wrong. Okay, he's made a wrong assumption. He's looked at the experiment incorrectly. He's made mistakes, and he won't correct them. It's not corrected in the text. It's not corrected anywhere. He just leaves the video up even though it's got in it an overt statement that he can't possibly defend. All right. And that's what he does. No, it was more important to him to save face and find excuses. So again, finding excuses and dissecting problems they think is the same thing. So if you find a problem with what they did, if you mention quick release or something logical, they find that offensive. Okay. I can accept there are sometimes imperfections in my efforts. Well, you just claim they were perfect. You perfectly proved that they're, things twice the speed, 4 times the distance, even when there's no friction. You proved it. I don't run a laboratory and have to spend my own money to test his garbage ideas. Any decent person would be at least grateful. So again, I should be grateful to physics that's relying on Stephen Bro to produce elemental physical evidence. I think that's disgusting. As your experiments are pretty disgusting, as these vulgar pieces of anti-woman crap you fill them with, these demeaning images you cover your slop with. You're a disgusting human being, a disgusting, duplicitous piece of shit. Such a liar. Like you care about the integrity of women. I made such efforts on their behalf instead of acting like a big baby. Well, you're clearly a big monstrous baby, but whatever. Anyway, just wanted to say thanks for doing this again. No point in rattling on. Yeah, there really is no point. I mean, there's nothing in this video that demonstrates anything regarding kinetic energy and momentum. And again, he's just overtly saying it doesn't, I don't care that the Chevrolet video shows the lever working with the weights on the top. He just doesn't care. All right, this Merker cunt. A spring compressed is not moving. So again, he doesn't really understand how you store energy in magnets, for example. 2 magnets can, be compressed into each other's force, and they will move when you release them, but they won't move when you're not releasing them. Doesn't mean there isn't stored force. That is, momentum is there to be had. How can it have momentum? So again, it's just you don't understand how electrons and protons have momentum. That the bits inside of atoms are also moving, and that they have momentum, and they can store momentum. That's a physics concept way over your fucking useless, stupid cunt moron head. Momentum is a singular quantity that describes object's mass in motion. Well, I don't know how exactly. It's mass times velocity. What is so complicated? And there's a clear correlation between mass and velocity and how much stuff you can move. Bowling balls have a certain momentum. They hit pins and they give away their energy to the pins. And you can calculate exactly how much energy the ball had, how much momentum it had, by just calculating how much momentum it gave to the pins. And it all conserves. That's the truth, fuckhead. Okay, it is not energy. So they just say these putridly silly words. Okay, even though Galileo, Newton, and Descartes got right answers thinking it was energy. Okay. He doesn't believe in potential energy. I don't believe that there's any potential by putting a boat next to a stream. The boat doesn't have any potential energy. Okay? The boat couldn't care less. The boat is indifferent. It is not until you put the boat in the stream. Okay? The potential isn't, gravity isn't a potential thing. Gravity is a constant, all the time force. Just like the sun, it's on all the time. It's never turned off, you fucking moron. And all you can do is put something in the stream of gravity. Now, if this fucking moron knew anything about these subjects, he'd know that Leonard Susskind, the expert on Einstein relativity and all these other subjects, actually teaches gravity by using mock gravity, which is the idea of water flowing, you moron. He talks about it as if it was a stream of water, you moron. All right, spring potential energy equals force times distance. Here we go again. Force times force. The distance is a consequence of the force you applied. You're just multiplying the force times the force, you dumb fuck. You can't multiply a cause times an effect, you idiot. You have to multiply a cause times a cause to find an effect, you fucking moron. Oh, God, what an idiot. Sorry, I never got round to chasing up a comment you said vanished on my channel, I think. Oh, so now I was going to talk about his comment section on somebody else's video. Been so busy lately, can't afford to get too distracted from some important tasks. I wonder what those could possibly be. Just checked my spam, held for review folder, nothing there. Sorry, it's out of my control. No idea why. This often happens. So clearly it wouldn't have been a useful comment anyway, because he's a moron. Oh, fuck. God damn this planet. I curse you all to hell. Where you belong, what you deserve. God, you people should eat bird shit for eternity. Yeah. Ugh. Just horrible. Planet of less than apes. That's the sad truth. Less than chattering chimps. No integrity. No character. Just pukey jello. Yuck.